Hello and welcome everyone to the Integrating with the Improved PowerGP Connect webinar. My name is Brandon Cook and I'll be doing a super quick intro for Chris today. So before we get started, just a few brief housekeeping notes. First off, we are using GoToWebinar today, as you can see. If you look over to the right-hand side of your screen, you'll see the questions tab. If you have any questions as we go here, feel free to drop those in there, and we're going to get to all the questions at the end of today's webinar. Also, this webinar is being recorded and it will be posted under the Cloud tab of the resources page of Njevity.com. While you're there, feel free to check out some of our upcoming Njevity and PowerGP webinars. We got a lot of good stuff coming up in the next few months. So with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to today's presenter, Mr. Chris Hopkins.
Well, hey, thanks, Brandon. I appreciate that. And thanks for everybody for joining us today on this beautiful June 2nd. We've got a full session today. We're going to be starting out with an overview of PowerGP Connect, and then I'm going to give you a demo of the PowerGP Connect management systems. From there, we are going to create a custom PowerGP Connect object. We're going to pull data into Excel using PowerGP Connect, and then I'm going to take you through a couple of Postman demos. The first one, I'm going to show you how to create a SOP invoice using Postman and the out-of-the-box eConnect objects for creating SOP invoices. And then I'm going to show you some things that we've been working on to make the process of creating transactions a little bit easier with some of our transactional endpoints. And I'm going to show you how to do that to create a GL transaction and also how to create an AP transaction. So this is going to be a pretty technical session, and most of the time we're going to spend in demonstration. So I hope this is the right bus that you intended to be on. And here we go. Before we get started, just a little bit about Njevity. I'm sure most of you know who we are throughout the community. We've been Dynamics Cloud experts since 2001. We've been part of some of the largest Dynamics GP cloud deployments and are just big supporters of the Microsoft Dynamics GP community. So let's talk a little bit about PowerGP Online. A lot of folks tend to think of PowerGP Online as PowerGP hosted or as Dynamics GP hosted in the cloud, but it's a lot more than that. It encompasses, it is PowerGP or it is Dynamics GP hosted in the cloud, but we've added a lot to Dynamics GP to turn it into PowerGP. So for example, we've added our RESTful API, which is PowerGP Connect. That's what we're going to be spending our hour on talking about today. We've also added in our PowerGP Protect system. So hang up the phone. We've added in our PowerGP Protect system, which is our system of cybersecurity and backups and disaster recovery to ensure that we have the safest cloud in the Dynamics GP ecosystem. We've added multi-factor authentication so that you can really level up your security profile and ensure that even if you have a password, a set of credentials that gets compromised, that a bad actor still wouldn't be able to get into your environment. We've added PowerGP import. We've created integrations with Power BI and Power Apps and Power Automate. We have a mobile app. We've added so much to Dynamics GP that this is why we call it PowerGP Online. And this is kind of how PowerGP Connect fits into the picture. PowerGP Connect, we developed it because we knew that in order for Dynamics GP, for PowerGP to be considered a true cloud application, we really needed to have a true cloud API, and we just didn't have one in our ecosystem, and so that's what we've developed with PowerGP Connect. So we've got really three different sets of tools that we can use for integrations with with PowerGP Online. The first is PowerGP Connect. That's what we're going to be looking at today. PowerGP Connect is a developer-facing tool. It's a RESTful JSON API. It's built entirely on the eConnect business logic layer. So, we have not reinvented the wheel. We haven't recreated the business logic layer. We are going through eConnect. but we've also made it extensible so that you can use PowerGP Connect to expose any table, view, or stored procedure in your systems, in your company databases. So if you happen to be an ISV that has developed some add-on solutions for Dynamics GP, and you have your own set of views and stored procedures that you use for your integration, we can publish those through the PowerGP Connect API, and then you can access those through that API engine. So we've used this for our PowerGP mobile application, for our Power BI integrations and Power App integrations. We've also used PowerGP Connect to develop our first cloud-to-cloud integration with Expensify to PowerGP Online. So we've actually got an Expensify integration. It's free out of the box with PowerGP Online. You can hook up your Expensify system, which is in its cloud, to the PowerGP in our cloud, all just across the internet. It's really cool. Next, we've got integration tools like E1 Smart Connect or Integration Manager. These tend to be more consultant or power user-facing tools. They provide you with a graphical user interface to create your integrations, do data manipulation and scheduling. And they also use eConnect. And then one of the other tools that we've created, PowerGP Import, this is a very end-user facing tool. We've embedded it directly inside of the PowerGP Online UI. So if you wanted to import customers with PowerGP Import, you go to the customers window. If you want to import GL transactions, you go to the GL entry window. It's just embedded right inside the windows. And we've also added it to the navigation lists as well. This also uses eConnect to push data into GP, and it's just real simple and easy. No manipulation needed. So these are some of the different integration tools we have and how PowerGP Connect fits within this. It's developer facing, and I think you're going to see kind of how this is going to work here in just a minute. So with that, I'm going to move on to our demo. So I'm going to stop the slides. And let's start with PowerGP Connect. So I am going to go open up a new browser tab and sign into PowerGP Connect. The first thing that's going to happen is if I have multiple GP companies, it's going to ask me which GP company I'd like to connect to. So I just have one. I'm going to connect to that company. Now what you're seeing here is the main console for the PowerGP Connect management. We have it divided into 3 sections. Objects, these are the things that you connect to. Users, these are the people who can connect. And then security, this is how we define the security model around the entire system. So if you have a user, which of your GP companies do they have access to? And within those companies, what objects are they able to use? We've also surfaced up our PowerGP mobile security UI here. This one you can access both inside of PowerGP Online and through PowerGP Connect, so you can control what users can see and do in the PowerGP mobile application right from here also. I want to start with our object list. So I'm going to come over and I'm just going to click on object list. This opens up a table of all of the out-of-the-box endpoints that we provide with PowerGP Connect. As you can see, there's a lot of them. I can filter these down by series. So perhaps I would just like to see those in my financial area. I can also filter them by type. So I could look for just stored procedures, let's say. So if I came in here, I'd see a lot of these are the eConnect stored procedures that come with PowerGP Connect. I can filter it down to tables and views. These are the things that are going to allow me to pull data into Power BI or into Excel. So if you think about it like this, that the tables and views are the way that you read data out of GP, and the stored procedures are the way that you write data back into PowerGP. And I can filter these down as well. So let's say I'm just going to switch my SQL type to all. We'll change our series back to all. And I also have filters along each of these columns. So if I wanted to just look for any object that contains the word, let's see, maybe set GL. You had a filter on that. And then here's my set GL transaction endpoint. This is the one that one of the ones I'm going to be demoing for you later. If I wanted to just find all of the endpoints that have the word customer in it, I can filter on that. And here's all of the views that have customer. I can sort it by clicking on the column as you'd expect. I can see how these guys spread out. And if I wanted to filter it down even more, I can keep doing that. This object URL, this is the URL that you would use in Excel or Power BI if you're getting data. It's also the URL as a programmer that you would call to get data out of PowerGP Connect. And you just copy that right from here onto your clipboard and go put it into your code, put it into Excel. It's really, really easy to do. And then over on the right, we'll have our security. This shows me which users have access to this particular object. And right now I have this filter to only show me the users that are active. I can clear that filter, and now I can see users that don't have access as well as those that do. So I'm going to clear all the filters. So this is our object list. There are a lot of objects, so we've tried to make it really easy for you to filter them and so you can find the ones that you're looking for. We also give you the ability to create new objects, and I'm going to show you how to do that here in just a minute. You can access the Create New Object link right here. Also, from our home page, we have our Add New Object entry right here as well. This setup integrations, this is where you would go to set up our Expensify integration. And as we add more integrations with other cloud applications, those will be set up here as well. Let's go take a look at our user list next. I'm going to click on that. So this is a list of all my users. Now users in PowerGP Connect get created automatically through our automated systems as you add and manage users through the PowerGP portal. So as soon as you assign a user to a PowerGP subscription, if that PowerGP subscription includes access to PowerGP Connect, those users just automatically get created. Now, when they get created, they don't have access to anything. So you do have to come in to the system if you want them to have access and assign to them what you'd like them to have. Right through here from this user list, I can do a couple of things. One, I could do an edit. So if I hit the edit button, this would let me say change their password. Now, users could reset their own password if they forget it from the login process. But as an administrator, you also have the ability to do manual resets. You have the ability to update their email address here, inactivate a user if you needed to. This is also where, as an administrator, you can promote another user to administrator. If a user is not an administrator, when they log into PowerGP Connect, all they're going to see is this object list over this object area, and they'll only see the objects they have access to. Whereas an administrator, I am able to see all the objects, so I can control who has access to what. So this is where you can manage your users like this. Now I also have the ability from here to access the security area to see what each of these users has access to. So for example, let's use Baru as an example. If I click the company access button, I can see what companies Baru has been granted access to. In this case, I only have one company, and she has been given access to it. I can also come into the object access, and here I see all the objects. If I want to filter these down to just show me which ones Baru has access to, I'll just filter this for items where the checkbox is checked. And now I can see, these are the few objects that Baru has been granted access to. So again, when she logs in to PowerGP Connect, these will be the only objects she sees. She won't even know that other objects exist. Oh, and by the way, only admins have the right to add custom objects. So Baru won't have the ability to add custom objects either. She just has the ability to consume the objects that she's been granted access to. All right, let's go back to our home page. Now, just as we can access the security model from a user through the lens of a user, we can also access it directly from here. So for example, I can come into company security and I can see all these are all the users that have access to the company that I'm currently logged into. These are the four users that have that. If I remove the filter, you'll see I've got one user here that doesn't have access to this company. And so here I'm kind of looking at it through the lens of the company itself. And if I go through the object security here, it's kind of the same thing. From here, I'm looking at through the lens of the object. So if I wanted to say, who has access to the, let's see, let's come down here and say get bank accounts. Who has access to the get bank accounts or get bank balances object. You see, I'm the only person. Owen Lars is the only user that has access to that. So I can take an object and say who has access to that. I can take a person and see what do they have access to. So I can kind of see it from both sides. So that's how the security model works, and really that's all there is to the management part of the application. We're just giving you the ability to see the objects, control the objects, and assign security to them. All right, so now I want to transition into what I think is more of the exciting stuff. I want to actually, I'm going to start off by showing you how to read data through PowerGP Connect, and then we're going to switch into how you can write data back. So the first thing that I want to do is I'm going to hook this up to an Excel spreadsheet. So I'm going to come into my object list, and the object that I am looking for is going to contain the word customer. And this is the one I want to use, get customers. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to hit this little copy button, and I'll copy that URL over into my clipboard. Now these URLs, you can see up here in my my URL here, it starts with TWFS. That is my tenant ID. That is my unique tenant ID for this this GP environment that I'm connecting to. And so that's what we're going to start with. And as I start getting into the objects themselves, you'll see I have, I'm going to paste this into a new item here so you can kind of see what it looks like. It starts with our TWFS, which is our tenant ID. And then a little further on, we have our company ID. That's our company name. And then we have the object that we're actually calling. So if you're looking at creating an application that's going to consume these endpoints, that tenant ID and the company ID are two parts of the URL puzzle that you'll want to have. So I've got that on my clipboard. Come over into Excel, and from Excel, in order to get data through PowerGP Connect, we're going to go to the Data tab in Excel, and I'm going to choose to get and transform data from the web. Now this is going to open up Power Query. This is the Microsoft Power Query embedded inside of Excel. I'm going to paste this URL in and say OK. Now, if this is the first time I've pasted this URL in, it's going to ask me for my username and password to authenticate me. But I've saved my username and password into Excel, so it's not going to ask me again. All right, so it establishes the connection. Now, PowerGP Connect is a JSON-based API, which means the data that you send into it is formatted as JSON, and the data that you receive out of it is formatted as JSON. So when I first connect here in Excel, Excel is looking at this as the JSON data, which doesn't really, it's not really built to look nice in a spreadsheet. So what I need to do is I want to take this JSON data and I want to convert it to a table. So there's just this one button up in the top left corner, convert to table. And this is going to convert that JSON data into an Excel table for me. And then I'm going to expand the columns by clicking this little button right here. And I like to uncheck this and use original column name as prefix. I'm going to uncheck it on this one, and I won't uncheck it on the next one so you can see what the difference is. And I think you'll agree it's better when you leave it unchecked. I'm going to hit the OK button. And now what I have is something that looks a lot like a table in Excel. I've got, I can further here inside of Power Query, apply additional queries and filters. But at this point, I'm just going to hit close and load and return that into Excel. Now, if I were to come into, I want to go into PowerGP Online, and let's get a customer list here. I'm going to go find my my customer sample. So if I took my sample customer and open it up, and let's say I wanted to change the contact from Devin Wright to Bob Smith Anderson, save that, come back into Excel, and I'm going to hit the refresh button in Excel, and the field that you're going to be looking at, watch right here, it's going to happen really fast. That's how fast PowerGP Connect is able to refresh the spreadsheet. So if you've worked with any other APIs or any other methods of doing refreshes that aren't live against the table, I hope you'll appreciate it. It's pretty darn fast. So that's an example of getting our customer data into an Excel spreadsheet. Now I want to take another example and look at doing some transactional data. So let's come back over here to PowerGP Connect, and this time I'm going to say let's get some GL transactions. So here's my get GL transactions object. Let's copy this, come back to Excel, go to data, get data from web. Now, incidentally, as we're going through this process, this data management, this get data management widget that's used in Excel is the exact same get data model that's used in Power BI. So everything that we're doing here, you can do the exact same thing and connect this data into Power BI Desktop or into the Power BI service itself. It's also how you work with Power Apps. So the model's a little different in Power Apps, the way that you define your data sources, but you still use these same URLs. And with that, you're able to connect to the Microsoft Power Platform without having to use a gateway, which is really nice because then you don't have to worry that somebody might connect to a table and edit the table they're not supposed to connect. With PowerGP Connect, they're always kind of forced to go through the PowerGP Connect API, which is on top of eConnect. So they can't make a change that's not allowed by the platform. Whereas in Power Apps, you kind of have to be careful. You have to design it that way, and so you have to make sure your designers know what tables they are and are not supposed to edit. Now this time when I bring this one, I'm not going to uncheck this box. So I'll leave it checked so you'll see how it looks as it creates the column names. And so now you just got to get column one, dot. So it's not very, it's not my preference to see it that way. All right, so now we're going to pull in our GL transaction data. And so I just pulled in 11,000 rows. That's how fast that whole process works. If you want to see it again, here I'll hit the refresh button, and yep, there we go. 11,000 rows just traversed the internet and inserted themselves into my Excel application. Pretty exciting. So next, let's go back into PowerGP Connect. So we pulled some customer data. We pulled some GL data, and I did that really because I wanted you to see how fast it was to pull 11,000 records. But now I want to walk you through the process of creating a custom object with PowerGP Connect. I'm going to come here, I'm going to clear my filters, and I'm going to click this Create New Object button. Now, there's really only a couple of things I need to know to create an object. The first is what the SQL name of the object is. So I'm gonna connect up to a table. I'm going to put it in my sales series, and the table I'm going to connect to is the RM00101. Now, for those of you who know GP, that is my customer master table. And then I need to give it an object name. So this is just how I want to access the API. So I might call this customer table, and then I'll hit create. So here it is. I'm going to filter this down. Let's just show tables. I think this is the only table that I have in the system at the moment. It's connected to this is my custom table. and I'm going to grab my URL here. And I also need to add some users to it. So I'm going to click that, and I'm going to add Owen Lars to this particular object. Now I've got my my URL. Let's come back over into Excel, and we'll get data from web. Paste this guy in and say OK. Now this is connecting up directly to the table. So in my view, my get customers view, I'll show you this here in just a minute after it finishes pulling the data in. In my get customers view, we've made the table names nice and friendly. We've also added fields that are not in the RM00101 table, fields like the email addresses, fields like first invoice date. So you know, it's really a more extensive view than what you just get here at the table. And as I pull this table in, you'll notice these are the your typical 8-character field names. I mean, I'm pulling this directly out of the table, so we haven't done any column renaming here. It's just right out of the table, as if you were writing a select star from query in SMS. I'm going to bring this back to Excel. So as I scroll through this, you'll notice this is just every bit the standard GP table. Now, if I come back to our get customers list, here you'll notice we've got our nice field names. We've reordered some of the columns so they make a little bit more sense. And as I scroll down through the right, you'll see things like we have balance due. So we brought some of the fields from the 103 table in here. We've also brought in the email addresses from the Internet Information table. So we've tried to make this a much more comprehensive view of customer data than what you might get with just the table directly. But you can see how easy it is to just very quickly create a new object and start working with it. I mean, it's really, really pretty simple. So that concludes the section of the demo that I wanted to do on working with Excel. As well as I said, this applies to the Power Platform as well. With that, I'm going to move into something a little more technical, and that is Postman. For those of you who aren't familiar with Postman, Postman is a free app that you can download that gives you the ability to connect up to API endpoints. So this is a great way to test an endpoint to see, as I'm trying to work with it in code, what is this endpoint returning? What's the data that I need to collect? What is my data set going to look like? Or even, what are my return codes going to look like when I'm writing data back to the system? So it's a great way as a developer to just kind of see what the API is doing, so you're better able to interact with it in your code. So there are a couple of things that I want to do here. The first one is I want to look at some customer information. Now, we just were playing around with this get customers view over in Excel. Let's take a look at what get customers looks like in Postman. So here's my URL. It's that same get customer URL we were playing with before. I'm going to hit the send button. And what we're going to see down here in the bottom of the window is what the formatted JSON looks like. So this is what's actually coming back. This is why we're having to convert it to a table in Excel, because it's actually returning this text string of formatted data. And if you're familiar with XML, you might note that JSON and XML have some similarities. It's text data where you have tags and data. JSON is just a lot more efficient because XML uses every tag name twice. JSON doesn't do that. So it's your file, your stream sizes tend to be smaller, so it's more efficient over the internet. But this is what it looks like. There's my customer number. Oh, look, there's my contact person, Bob Smith Anderson, that we changed a few minutes ago. So this is all that information. Now, a couple other things that we give you the ability to do with Connect. You can, I mean, we're getting a lot of data back here. Maybe the application that you're working with only needs a few pieces of data. So we have the ability for you to only ask for certain columns. So, imagine you're writing a SQL statement, you've got your select star, or you could say select customer number, comma, customer name, comma, city from. That's kind of what the select columns lets you do. And I'm checking this here in Postman, but really all that's doing is adding it to the URL up here. So here's my base URL for get customers. Then we have a question mark. This indicates that our parameter section is about to begin. And the first parameter I'm passing in is select columns. And then I'm going to give it the set of columns that I want it to return. So again, this is all just going into the URL, which means I can put this into Excel or Power BI in exactly the same way that you see it here. I'm going to hit the send button, and now you'll notice I'm getting a much smaller subset of data back. Now, in addition to giving you the ability to identify your column set, we also give you the ability to add filters. So I'm going to click this filter button, and you'll see after so here's my select columns. After I'm finished with that, we have a little ampersand and then filter one. And what you see here is I'm saying where state equals Illinois. And then the S indicates that the data is string, and the A, this is like and versus or. So this gives you the ability to do ors as well as ands in your query structure. So if I want to just find those where the state is Illinois, I can click this, and now I've got an even more reduced set of data, are just those customers in the state of Illinois. And then we've also given you the ability to do order by, where I can now say I want to order it by city ascending, and so now I've got my set of data, I've got it sorted, filtered exactly the way that I want. So we're giving you a lot more capabilities here than just hitting that endpoint directly and pulling it back. I mean, you've got a lot of capabilities to really work with it. All right, I'm going to take a couple of these off. Now, so this is how I'm getting data about the customer. Let's create a customer in PowerGP Online using PowerGP Connect. Now, before I do that, the first thing I'm going to do is come over into PowerGP Online, and we're going to pull our customer list up. I'm going to create a customer that's going to come up here at the top of the list because we're sorted by customer ID. So, like a magician, like any good magician, we got to show you there's nothing up our sleeves. We don't want you to think we're pulling any tricks here. There's the customer I'm about to create does not yet exist here in PowerGP Online. Now I'm going to come back into Postman, and I've got a set customer item that I'm going to run. So here's that URL. Now the URL that I'm actually calling, the object I'm calling is update create customer record. Now, for those of you who are familiar with eConnect, this is the eConnect procedure name to update or create a customer in PowerGP Online. So here we are just straight up using the eConnect, this eConnect object that we've published in PowerGP Connect. Now, when I'm writing data back, when I'm getting data, all I need to do is pass a URL because I'm telling you this is the object that I want to hit, passing it filters if I need to. But if I'm updating data, there's a little more involved, and that is where I'm gonna come to this body section in Postman. When you're updating data, you need to have a JSON payload that tells you this is the data that I want to update, or this is the data I want to create. So think about this as this is just a JSON formatted data that I'm going to pass into this update create customer record eConnect object, and it's going to create this customer for me. Now I'm going to change the name of this one here. So I've got my customer ID, so it'll be up at the top. From a customer name standpoint, let's change it to I don't know. I'll call it post oh man, I can't spell post well, it'll be misspelled, post-pandemic webinar. I guess Postman needs to have some spell checks in it, doesn't it? Maybe. I'm going to assign a customer class, an address code. Now, clearly, I'm not passing very much information into this. You've got all the fields available to you in this eConnect node. I'm just kind of trying to do a very small number. And one of the ones I'm doing is use customer class, which is going to take all the default that's assigned to the default customer class and pull it in to this customer record. So I'm going to give it just a little tiny bit of data, and then I'm going to get a customer creator with a whole bunch of data. So here we go. Let's hit the send button. When I do that, I'm going to get a result set. The result set would, here is giving me an error state of 0, which means there's no errors. If I had gotten an error, that would come back and it would give me the error string as well as the error code. So as a developer, I would know what I need to do with it. So for example, if you're creating a journal entry and the account doesn't exist, you'll get a message back that the account doesn't exist. All right, so we've created this. The error state is 0. Let's go hop back into PowerGP and refresh our customer list. And here we go. Here is my AA Jason test post-pandemic webinar customer. And if I double click it to open it up, you'll see there's a lot of information in here, like payment terms, price level, salesperson. This is stuff that all defaulted down from the class because I had that parameter set to do so. So here's my customer. That's pretty easy, right? When you hear things like JSON, RESTful API, you think, wow, this is going to be really complicated, but it's not so bad. Not so bad. Incidentally, by the way, let's hop back over into Excel and take a look at our get customer sheet over here. And let's see, data, refresh. So I'm probably going to have 106 rows now. And let's see. I don't remember what I called my, let's just sort it here. There we go. AA JSON test. There's my post-pandemic webinar. Really easy to do. Now let's also imagine for a minute that you're working with an integration and you just want to get data back that's been recently updated. We have enabled that as well here. I'm going to come back over to get customers, and I've got another filter here. I've got a filter where last modified is greater than June 1st. And when I run this, I'm going to get 2 records back. I've got my sample customer, because remember I had changed the contact ID or the contact name of that customer. And then I've got the new customer I just created. For both of them, I've got created dates and last modified dates. So for those kind of integrations where you just give me everything that's been modified since the last time I ran the integration, it's really, really easy to get that information out of the system. So this is a pretty easy one. We used our eConnect set customer object. Not a lot to it. Now let's level up a little bit and let's create a sales order document. Now, for those of you familiar with Dynamics GP, you know that the sales order object is one of the more complex objects in Dynamics GP. I think there are somewhere between 7 and 9 different eConnect procedures that correlate to creating a sales document. So there's a lot involved in this. And for us, I want to create a simple sales document. And so I've kind of created my process here. The first thing I'm going to do is get my next SOP number. Now, I only need to do this if I'm trying to let PowerGP Online define my invoice numbers. If I have invoices coming from another system where I've got unique invoice numbers, I could just use that. I don't have to use get next number. But here in this case, I'm going to call get next number just to tell me what my next SOP number is. I need to create a batch for these transactions I'm about to create. And then I'm going to create 3 line items. And for those of you who work with eConnect, you should see this is very familiar, right? You put in your line items first, and then your header goes in last. We're going to do the same thing here because guess what? We're really just working with eConnect. So I'm going to run my add line endpoint 3 times. I'm gonna create a widget, a green phone, and an install, and then I'm gonna add the header. So working with these eConnect objects, I just gotta run each one individually. Now, before I do that, let's pop back over here into PowerGP. Let's go over and look at our sales transaction entry. And I just want to make sure that I don't have any documents already out here, and I don't. All right, awesome. So let's come over to get next number. So get next number, again, we're going to be passing in some bodies because we're going to be updating data in PowerGP Online. So I'm going to run this. I'm telling it, SOP type is 3, invoice is the type, and I'm going to hit send. And what I get back in my my return code is my next SOP number, 3500013. Now, as a developer, you're going to want to take this number and save it in a variable because you're going to have to use it on every line item and your header. In this case, I'm going to save it into my clipboard, and I'm going to paste it into some of these next ones. I'm going to create a batch, and I'm going to call it webinar batch, and just hit send. That's going to create the batch for this item to land in. And then we're going to start creating our line items. So the first line item I'm going to create, I'm going to add a widget. You'll notice here I've got the SOP number. I need to paste my next SOP number in there. I've got my customer number, my date. This is the item number, and I've got a quantity. And then I'm telling it to default the pricing. So it's gonna pull the default price for the widgets from my GP system. It'll also pull the default item description, just as it would if you were entering this item on the record. So I'm going to go ahead and send this. Next, we're going to come over and we're going to add the green phone item, the 100 XLG. This is Amber Bell's favorite item, if you know Amber. So I'm going to paste my number in here. Now on this one, I'm going to take the 100 XLG item, but I'm going to override its unit price. So I'm going to get 3 of them, but I'm going to override the price, and I'm going to get them at $50. I'm going to hit send there. And then I'm going to add some services to actually install my widgets. And so on this one, I've got my item called services, my quantity. And this one, I'm overriding the item description to put in, I don't know what's on the item card in GP, but I want this to be specific to this widget install that I'm about to do. And then it's going to use the default pricing as well. So I'm going to hit send. I'm getting these error states of 0, which is exactly what we want. And now the final thing I'm going to do is I'm going to insert the header. The header, I've got my customer, my batch, and I'm going to hit send there. And that's it. Now, as a programmer, you're going to be calling these different procedures individually as you're working to create those invoices. Not super hard. I think this is kind of simple. It can certainly be a lot more complex if you're working with serial numbers, if you're adding commissions, and it can get a lot more complicated. But with the simple amount of data that we put into the system, let's see what this particular invoice looks like. So we'll come up here and hit our document number lookup. There is my document number. And here we go. Here is my SOP number. Now you'll notice I never passed in what my document total was going to be. I just told it to default the pricing on the header. So it just automatically figured out what the subtotals and totals were. I've got my items and my pricing and all of that just worked out exactly the way we had passed it in from Postman. So this wasn't too difficult. It's pretty easy. I tried to keep it a little bit simpler of a document. No lot numbers, no serial numbers on this one, just so we don't get into that level of funness. But still, you can see, you're still having to call. You're creating one sales document, and you're calling, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different PowerGP Connect objects. So there's still a lot going on there. And one of the things that we've tried to do in Njevity to make this whole thing even simpler is we've created a new set of transactional endpoints. So I'm going to show you how these work, because I think you'll agree they're a little bit simpler than just working with eConnect straight up. So I'm going to show this to you with two different objects. I'm going to create a GL transaction, and I'm going to create an AP transaction. I'm going to create two AP transactions, one where I let the distributions default from the vendor, and one where I pass the distributions in with the transaction. So again, let's contrast that with 6 processes I need to run to create one SOP document against, let's say, 1 process I'm going to run to create a GL transaction. So let's go again. I always like to start with PowerGP Online. Let's just go make sure our journals are clean. Pop over here and let's see. Nope, no journals. Do I have any batches? I shouldn't have any batches either. Nope, no batches. Excellent. All right. So let's create a journal. Now again, this is a custom endpoint that Njevity created that allows you, the developer, to pass us a JSON document that contains both the headers and the lines. So this is the JSON payload that you'd be giving me to create a journal entry. I've got 3 account distributions. Here's my header. You're not having to give me the lines before the header. You don't have to create the batch before you come into this process, because we're going to look at for this batch, and if it doesn't exist, we're just going to create it. So we've really tried to simplify this. Instead of sending me 3 lines plus a header plus a create batch plus running get next number. If you're trying to do this through eConnect, it could be somewhat complicated. We've just tried to simplify this here. Now I'm gonna mess this up real quick so that I get an error. I just want you to see what it looks like if I don't have an account that exists. So I try to run this. You'll notice I get an error string back. Error on line 1, the account number string does not exist. So that's a pretty easy error message to digest, right? It's not like where you just get the number and then you have to go look it up and see what it is. We've actually tried to bring those error strings back to you, so as the developer, you just know what's going on. All right, let me put my account number back to what it was before. Boy, I hope that's what it was. And one other comment I'll just show you. In addition to creating the journal, we're also going to create a note. This is a completely separate eConnect node, but we've under the covers, we're handling calling all the eConnect stuff so that you can just give us a document that looks like a transaction. So I'm going to hit the send button here. This comes back. It tells me the journal number that it used. That gives me the batch. So if I needed this information in my program to put somewhere else, I would have it. So let's pop over into PowerGP now and see what this looks like. All right, so here's my journal. 5289, there's my test batch that got created. If I expand my line items, you'll see the distribution references that I passed in are there. And look at this, I have a note that has been attached to the transaction also. So as easy as it was to create the sales order, even though I had to call eConnect 6 times, so much easier to create a GL transaction. I hope you'd agree with this transactional endpoint that we've created. Let me pop back over into PowerGP, because the last area that we want to look at is our accounts payable. So I'm going to create 2 accounts payable transactions. I wanted to show you just how easy it could be if you don't need to send in distributions, and then I'll show you what it looks like if you need to send in distributions. So we don't have any transactions out here. That's great. Let's come back over to Postman. So the first one, I'm going to create an AP transaction with no distributions. I'm calling our set payables transaction endpoint. Giving it a batch ID. Now, if that batch doesn't exist, it's going to get created automatically. I'm giving it a vendor ID, the document type. That's one for a voucher. You know, I don't have to pass in all this information like payment terms and PO number. These fields aren't required, but I'm gonna put them in here. And then I'm coming in with a purchase amount of $1,500 plus freight of $25 plus miscellaneous of $15. So let's just hit that send button. And here we go. There's my voucher number that got created. So that's 497. We're gonna go and look at that in just a minute. But first, let's create our second transaction. This one is going to have distributions. And you'll notice on this, you know, here's my header, and then here are the distributions. So I'm overriding the travel expense account that I'm sending this this particular one to. So the first one I'm flying to Phoenix. This one I'm flying to London. I think if I'm going to pay $1,500, no matter what, I might want to fly to London. But I'm going to hit, no offense to those of you who love Phoenix. Phoenix is a great town, but I mean London, right? All right, so we've got our number created here, 498. Let's go hop back into PowerGP. And our first one, there we go, there's 497, my ticket to Phoenix. I've got a $1,500 purchase, $2,500 in freight, $15 in miscellaneous, and it's kind of figured out what the total is. If I come into my distributions, now recall I didn't pass any distributions in with this, but all 4 of these distributions are there because they are defaulting from my vendor setup and my posting setup. And let's see, let's take a look at my next one. 498, here we are going to London. So $1,500 to travel, pop in here to my distributions, and we should see the override. The travel expense account, instead of zeros for the first 2 segments, it's going to 100, 100. Incidentally, for those of you who haven't seen the PowerGP version of this window before, this is one of the changes that we've made in PowerGP Online is modifying this window to give you some context about the transaction you're entering. So, here I am entering transaction 347. I can see, there's transaction 3476. I can see information about it, the date, the amounts. I can see open payables, recently posted payments, and I can even just pop right from here into my transaction inquiry window if I wanted to look at everything that's in the system right now. So just one of the examples of things we're doing that are trying to make the GP experience more exceptional. All right, so that brings me to the end of my demos. Let's pop back into the slides for a minute, and then we will get to some Q&A. So really, the final slide I wanted to leave you with PowerGP Online, when you're doing writebacks, Njevity has created these 6 transactional endpoints. So I showed you the set GL transaction, the set payables transaction. We've also got bank transactions, cash receipts, manual payments, which is AP, and receivables transactions. We're working on others to really try and to simplify them. But these are the ones that we have out today. In addition, we're providing you with all 180 eConnect procedures. So even if we haven't gotten to one yet, like we haven't gotten to the SOP document yet, to make it simpler and easier, like our GL transactions, you can still do it, and it's using the native eConnect, and it's still pretty easy. So I hope as we've gone through this presentation today, you kind of see our mission at Njevity coming to light. That our objective with all of this, with what we've done with PowerGP Online and PowerGP Connect, is to improve the life and success of our partners and customers by providing exceptional business application experiences that simplify, inform, and delight. I hope today you've seen something that's simpler than things you've done before, and I hope you've seen some things today that will delight you. And with that, Brandon, I'd like to open it up to Q&A.
So don't have any questions right now. I'll give people some time to fill it in if they have any, but nothing right now.
Should we play the Jeopardy music?
Yeah, there you go.
I love it when I do a presentation, get no questions, because that means I was perfect. I answered every potential question before it came up. Gave you all the information that you could possibly want. I'm sure that's not true. You guys are probably just being shy. I don't know. Wendy Epperson is on this side. She's not shy, so got some questions, man.
So Wendy does have a comment.
Wendy is asking a question, Brandon. Yeah. She wants to know if they can use this against all versions of PowerGP Online. And the answer is yes, Wendy. All versions, all editions. So if you're basic, standard, premium, premium plus, bring your own license, all the editions and versions of PowerGP Online work with PowerGP. I feel like I just got another question from Wendy. Let's see. And it's included for no extra charge. Yes, it is free. Everything you just saw, you just get with PowerGP Online, no additional costs. Anyone else? All right. Well, Brandon, you want to wrap us up?
Yeah, sure.
If there are no further questions.
Yeah, well, we appreciate everyone coming out, and keep an eye out. We got one more PowerGP webinar for this month, and we got some stuff coming in July too. So stay tuned. And have a great day, of course.